Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, the podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Meslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Hadi Doumit, the carnivore chef, has lost over 235 pounds by following Chris and Mark Bell and a carnivore diet. Chris was so inspired by Hadi's story that he currently trains with him now at the Super Training Gym. Welcome to the show, Hadi.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Your story is super inspirational. I just listened to you on Fat Guy Forum with Gormy. Loved that episode. But for folks who aren't familiar, start us off with your personal background with health. How'd you get so big? How'd you get unhealthy?
Honestly, I've been big my whole life. When you're big, you don't realize how unhealthy you are. You just think, hey, that's me, right? It got to a point to where, I didn't know what was wrong with me, man. I felt ill all the time. At nighttime I would wake up, you go to the restroom about, 3-4 times an hour. I just wasn't sure what was wrong with me. I'd wake up in the morning, my bed would be drenched in sweat. My wife at the time, I didn't have a doctor at first, she had found me a doctor, went in and filled out all the, new patient paperwork and told me, hey, on Monday you have a doctor's appointment. Obviously something was wrong with me, but I was just dragging my feet. I didn't want to know. So at that point, I had no choice. I went in there, got my blood work done. Results came back. I was, pre-diabetic, everything was going bad with me. Everything. When the doctor, was telling me what was wrong with me, all I thought in my head was, my daughter was in kindergarten at first. I said, man, I'm not going to see her go into the first grade. I blanked out. Instantly he prescribed me medication for diabetes, high blood pressure, you name it, man. He was prescribing me everything. I sat in my car in the parking lot at the doctor's office, thinking like, man, how am I going to go home, tell my family, I'm dying, basically. I remembered there was a supplement shop nearby. So I went in there, and there was a bodybuilder that was working in there. Instantly, I told him, I said, look, I'm not looking for a magic pill. Obviously you're doing something right. I just want to know how I could get healthier. What do you eat? I told him I can't eat salads for the rest of my life. Instantly you think to get healthy, you got to eat a salad, right?
Yeah.
So he started explaining to me like the bodybuilding diet. You eat 6 meals a day, every 2.5 hours, 3 hours, how to incorporate carbs, you weigh everything. Don't get me wrong. I started doing that and it started working. But for somebody like me, I am never going to be a bodybuilder. I'm not training for a bodybuilding show. All I wanted to do was to get healthier. The diet was working, but if I wanted to go out and eat with my family, I couldn't. I felt like, man, I have to weigh this meal. I don't know how much it weighs. Is it going to incorporate into my, bodybuilding diet? I was sitting on my couch and, I was watching Netflix, man. I was still kind of lost. Like, am I getting healthier? I'm losing some of the weight, but so I was, looking at Netflix and I came across, Bigger, Stronger, Faster. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I saw Hulkamania on the cover. So I started watching it. What really drew me to that is, when you look at me and Mark Bell, you're like, what do these guys have in common? Why is this guy so into that, right? What drew me in is he had a learning disability. And as did I when I was growing up in school. You know, a lot of stuff was very hard for me when I was doing homework and stuff like that. So instantly I'm like, man, look at this guy. He's jacked. He had a learning disability and nothing stopped him, right?
Yeah.
So I started looking up Chris Bell and Mark Bell, you know, on YouTube, Instagram. And I'm like, man, these guys are ripped. All they're doing is throwing away the carbs. So I started incorporating all of that, you know, eating more meat, you know, playing around with it, kind of doing the keto thing and then switching all the way to carnivore. And man, in 1 year, I lost 191 pounds in one whole year.
Wow.
Yeah, 191 pounds in 1 year. And you know something, I did not go into the gym once that year. All I focused on was my nutrition, 100%. So in the meantime, man, I was doing the checkups with the doctor. You know, you go in because my health was so bad. I was going in there every 2 weeks at first, right? And then he would prescribe me more stuff and he'd prescribe me more stuff. And then it became, you know, I was making a little change. So now it was like a 6-month checkup, you know, to make it like a whole year checkup. So I came back a year later. He didn't actually recognize me after I did my blood work and everything. And he goes, wow, man, everything looks healthy. And so he thought something was wrong with the blood test. He had me redo it. So I came back 2 weeks later and, he couldn't believe how, you know, I went from you know, basically dying into being like the healthiest I've ever been in my life. You know, one thing is I brought this envelope and I showed the doctor. I said, look, I didn't turn in one prescription you kept giving me. I said, here's the envelope. So never once did you ask me what my diet was. You instantly prescribed me everything, you know, and assumed that I needed to be on this medication to stay alive. But again, I'm not preaching that to anybody. Anybody should do that. That's what worked for me. You know, I didn't feel like I needed to be on medication right away. I wanted to just see if I could get my health back on track with, you know, eating correctly. So that's my story behind the doctor story, you know, with the prescriptions and stuff like that. But I don't feel like I should be on medication for the rest of my life. There has to be an alternative that I could get my health back on track. And it actually worked by just changing my diet.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I can't believe how you did it all with such little support almost.
Yeah.
You did so much of it by yourself. And had you tried to lose the weight before? Or was this like the only real moment where you had that catalyst and you had that motivation to change?
No, I've honestly yo-yo dieted. I've tried. You know, you look up stuff online and you're like, okay, well, this is a new diet, right? Let me give it a shot. And, you know, you lose a few pounds here and there and then you kind of stop and everything comes back on and you gain a little more after that. You know, you end up being heavier than what you originally started at. This was a real wake up call for me. You know, when the doctor was telling me basically I was dying, all I thought about was my daughter at the time. And man, I swear she's like my hero. She's the one that saved my life. Instantly, man, I cut everything out and I just needed to make sure I was around for her.
Yeah, that's crazy. And your wife, what did she think of all this? Like, what has she thought about along the way? You know, she was obviously the catalyst in a way, making you have that doctor's appointment. But,
right.
You know, when you told her what type of diet you were going to do and following the Chris and Mark, was she on board with that, or did she want you to see a nutritionist or what?
So, yeah, instantly at first, you know, she was kind of freaking out why I wouldn't turn in the prescriptions, you know, because basically my body was shutting down. And I told her, look, I've gone this long without it. Let's just see what happens. Let me just try it, you know, for a couple weeks, you know, and if, you know, I'm still not doing well, we'll turn them in and get them, you know. So everybody was like freaking out at first, like why I wouldn't just turn in the prescriptions and get on this medication to supposedly help me. So, you know, and to be honest with you, man, the first couple of weeks changing my diet man, I did not have to get up in the middle of the night anymore to use the restroom like every hour. The sweatness, waking up, my sheets were dry, just switching that up. My body was starting to heal itself because I wasn't putting all that toxins in it.
Yeah. And what changes did you make at first? Were you incremental about it, or did you just dive right in? What did you do? That next meal leaving the doctor's office was whatever meal that bodybuilder told me. Instantly, man, I began right away. I went to the store. Everything he told me I needed to buy, he gave me a list. I purchased it. I went and purchased a scale, because he weighs everything. And, at first I even did it wrong. I wasn't sure. Do I weigh everything raw? Do I weigh it cooked? I've never done anything like that in my life. And man, to be honest with you, being on a bodybuilding diet is like the hardest thing ever, because you're instantly on the time clock. Like, man, it's been 2.5 hours, 3 hours since my last meal. I need to eat to stay on track, and that's one thing is, man, I didn't have a physique for that. It's not like I'm competing for a bodybuilding show. I just needed to get healthier, and finding Chris and Mark, man, that made it so much easier for me to, go out with my family, and I could order like a steak anywhere, and not worry about how much it weighed, how much, I needed to portion it. I can enjoy a steak anywhere and take my family out for dinner. It made it almost a lifestyle change for me instead of a diet. I don't feel like I'm dieting. This is just part of my day now. Yeah, that's huge. Absolutely can relate to that. I've tried bodybuilding type diet, counting calories in the past, and it is time consuming. It is a complete suck on your brain. People
Absolutely.
say, oh, it's 5 minutes. You spend time on Instagram, you can enter that in your phone, you can meal prep, blah, blah, blah. But, it's a constant game of Tetris. And you're always planning your next meal, always thinking about food. It's really tough.
Exactly. You nailed it right there. You're always thinking about food. It's like your day isn't going on. You're like, man, I got to have this next meal. I need to carry this next meal with me. It's too hard, man. Unless, that's all you're doing is a bodybuilding show. Okay. That'll work great for you. And don't get me wrong, man. It works. If you are dieting and you're doing it, it's going to work, but it's just a lot of work to stay on top of the meals.
And do you find this diet restrictive, or do you find like you're having trouble adhering to it?
No, this was the easiest switch for me, honestly. At first, when people switch up their diets, they're like, man, I got to prepare for this. It's very easy. I mean, you could go to the store, grab some ground beef, grab some steaks, grab any type of meat and just cook it up. And, basically you could eat as much protein as you want. Your body almost tells you like, hey, I'm full, Yeah. You don't really have to weigh anything. You just kind of adapt to it. Your body adapts to it. I found this, honestly, the easiest switch for me is going to carnivore. Because at first I was like, man, all I'm going to do is eat meat. That, I don't know if I could do that forever. But this was on, as soon as you see the results, everything falls in place. You don't want to do anything else, I've never been healthier in my life than switching to this diet.
So how does your family feel about it now? How's your wife, your kids, other people in your life?
So everybody, at first they're like, all you're going to do is eat red meat, your cholesterol and all this is going to, because instantly people think, eating red meat is bad for you, right? A lot of people are against it. But then when people started seeing my results, I've never been healthier in my life. Now everybody's asking me questions about it. People always message me through the DM on the Instagram. Hey, what kind of meal plan are you doing? I'm not doing any meal plan. It's really red meat and water. I eat as much as my body tells me I need to eat. And I just go on through it, throughout my day. There's no weighing anything. It's just, this is what I felt like eating today is steak. That's what I'm going to eat. Steak and eggs, something like that. But there's no actual meal plan. It's just kind of sticking to red meat and water.
Yeah. It's too dead simple. And, how do you make this diet work on a budget? with your family and,
right.
And people say, oh, I can't afford ribeyes all day.
The thing is, I thought the same thing. I was like, man, I'm not rich. I can't afford eating steak every night. But honestly, I have a Costco card and everything is available at a good price at Costco. I go in there and buy packs of steaks that, I would normally buy at the store, a couple of steaks for like $20, $30. At Costco, I could get a stack of steaks for almost the same price. The ground beef, you get double the amount for the same price that you would get at the store. You can make this budget or work on a budget, honestly. You just got to plan out, how to buy it in bulk. Costco is probably the best place. Honestly, I found out about Costco because Chris Bell had made a YouTube video how to shop on a budget. And that's how it helped me incorporate that diet better into my budget.
Yeah, Mark Bell, they just had a Power Projects podcast came out today or yesterday on how to diet on a budget, and they had some great tips there.
Right.
But Costco's a huge one.
Right.
And how'd you get introduced to the Bell brothers? How'd you get introduced to super training?
So this is a crazy story, man. A couple of years ago, around New Year's, we found out my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And, after he was going through radiation, chemo, he had no energy at all. You know what I mean? We've tried everything. He was always in pain. I know Chris had made a movie called A Leap of Faith, about the kratom that he sells, Mind Bullet. And I know it helps with pain and gives you energy and all that stuff. One day I was, sitting on my couch, man, and I'm like, man, we've tried everything for my dad. He doesn't have any energy. I just want to make him feel better, with less pain. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to email Chris and just see what happens. He actually wrote me back. I just had some questions about Mind Bullet, and if it would help, with my dad's, treatments and stuff like that, So he invited me down to the gym to get some samples. I could not believe that Chris Bell wrote me back at the time. I'm a huge fan. I ran into the room and I showed my wife at the time. I said, hey, look, Chris Bell just wrote me. He told me to come to the gym to get these samples. Man, I was happier than I've ever been in my life.
That's pretty cool.
You know what I mean? So I go down to the gym and he gives me the samples. But of course, I had to take the opportunity to show my before and after picture and say, hey, man, I followed you and your brother and I lost 191 pounds in 1 year, just following what you guys did. So he was blown away when he saw my before and after picture and he invited me to come train with him. And now everything is history, man. Me and him are, very good friends. We go out and eat together. We hang out together. We train together. Man, it's like a dream come true, man. I'm training with Mark and Chris like every weekend now. I couldn't ask for anything better. It really is a dream come true. I still feels like a dream come true when I'm in there next to these guys.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking cool. I can't imagine, meeting a personal hero and someone who's transformed your life so much. And from their perspective, they must feel huge bond with you having affected your life in such a significant way.
Something, man, they've been such a big influence on my life. So I wanted to meet these guys so bad, right? And I was no power lifter or anything like that. I just wanted to get healthy. I wanted to meet these guys. Believe it or not, man, they got me to sign up for my first powerlifting competition, and I will be doing my first meet on March 15th. That's how much these guys have influenced me, man. I just want to get better now, They've
That's
been
awesome.
a big part. Yeah, they've been a big part of my training. I mean, they dial me in so well. We're working on form all the time. I'm so new to this, but it's just an amazing, amazing ride right now, man. I'm enjoying it all.
Yeah, that's super cool. And maybe let's get into some of the specifics, Hadi. Talk about what you eat in a day and how you make this diet work for yourself. I know they're big proponents of fasting. I know you're on the go. You have a family. So when do you eat? What do you eat? How do you make it work?
So I do fast, about a couple times a week, where I do actually do either a whole day fast or about a 16-hour fast. Normally when I eat, about 9 a.m. in the morning, and what I eat is a few eggs with either ground beef or some steak. And then my next meal will be dinner time. So I eat about 2 pretty good sized meals a day. Every now and then, if I feel a little hungrier where I'm going to be training at Super Training Gym, I do have a few eggs and a little more ground beef before I do train for that session. But normally I eat around 9 a.m. and then my next meal would be around dinner time, and they're pretty good solid meals.
Yeah, so you skip lunch for the most part?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
We're so programmed, to wake up instantly in the morning, right, and have breakfast. But why? You really don't have to do that, because most of the time when you wake up, you're not really hungry. You know what I mean? You only get hungry throughout the day. And that's for me. That's what works for me, is to start my lunch around that time. I work very early in the morning. I wake up around 3 a.m. in the morning to go to work. So when I'm having my breakfast, technically, it's really my lunch around 9 a.m., So I've been up already. Right. I've already been up working throughout the day, or, throughout the morning.
So you come home from work and you eat, and then do you go to train in the afternoon after that?
Yes. So I get off of work around 1:30, and so on Tuesday and Thursdays, I drive over to Super Training right after work, and I have a workout session over there. And then I come home and have dinner. So I'm really on the go majority of the time. Even when I'm not at Super Training, I usually just go to the gym right after and then come home. So I'm always on the go.
Yeah. And you also, you're on Instagram as the Carnivore Chef. I've seen some of your creations, some of your recipes on there. Talk about that side of your life.
Yeah. So I love to cook, man. I've always loved to cook since I was young. But right now, what I try to switch up, I try to make a lot of the things healthier. There's even some stuff where I've created ice cream out of the Slingshot protein that Mark Bell sells. It has no sugar in it. Nothing like that. It's just straight protein. I like to recreate stuff like that for my daughter, just to see how I can incorporate some of the healthier stuff into her day. She could still have whatever she wants, but how do I get it where it's carbless and sugarless? You know what I mean? I just love recreating stuff and making it healthier. A lot of it is I play with it until I get it right. That's the desserts part. But as far as the meals, I love to just, I keep it simple, really. I make the steaks, eggs, and I'm making hamburger patties, and I just post, that's what I normally eat. And it blows a lot of people's minds that, I'm eating all this food and I'm still getting a lot of results doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It doesn't seem like you're depriving yourself at all.
No.
You've got a food porn Instagram account, and you're eating until you're full. You're not counting calories, counting macros. It seems to be working pretty well for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, honestly, I tell everybody, just give it 5 days and you tell me if you can't stick to this diet. A lot of times people will automatically shut it out because it's red meat, right? Just give it 5 days. That's it. You've already, tried everything else almost. So when you come to me and ask me about it, just give it the 5 days, and I guarantee you it'll change your life for you.
Yeah. And someone starting out for the first time, what kind of advice would you have for them? A lot of people, I can't totally relate because I haven't been really overweight in my life before, but
Sure.
I can imagine being, way up there and just feeling like, everything is a trap and there's all this information flying at you. And
Right.
maybe you've tried some things in the past, but nothing works for you and you're just always hungry. How do you get started?
Honestly, the easiest way is, try to cut out all the carbs instantly. And even if you overeat a little bit on the protein, you're going to get more full, right? Even if you try to cut it out to where you're only doing 3 meals a day, that's okay too. And if you get hungry in between, just have a little more protein. That's it. A lot of the times we think we're hungry. We're just kind of craving something sweet, right? But if you're having more proteins, you're going to stay on track. You're going to get full. You're going to be proud of yourself that you didn't, fall off the wagon and try to grab that candy bar instead, right? So that's all it is just eating just a little bit more to be more satisfied, but it's all protein. You're not eating any carbs or anything like that. So I always tell people, if you have to eat a little more, do it. Then your body's just going to adjust to everything in time, and you'll know where you need to be at, to knock the weight off and feel full with a certain portion that's right for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's fantastic advice. And Hadi, you had a great story about this Jack the Ripper sweater.
Yeah.
Can you tell that? I think that would be really interesting for folks.
So the Jack the Skeleton one. So here's what it was, man. I've been big my whole life, right? And you could only shop really at the heavyweight stores. And, you can't get anything cool, man. There's only like really 2 options that you could pick from, 2 colors, nothing like that's a cool design that everybody else is wearing. So me and my family, we had season passes. We'd always go to Disneyland, a few times a year. I was at Disneyland after I lost the weight, and man, I was freezing one night. That is the first time ever I was able to walk up to anywhere and purchase a sweater that actually fits me. And it was a large. Before I couldn't go anywhere. Like if I'm cold, that's it, man. I'm cold for the whole night. I mean, there's no way Disneyland had anything my size. I was a 5X. I was almost pushing the 6X. So, yeah, that was the first time I was able to walk up to one of those stands and purchase a sweater and put it on, without feeling like I needed to go shop at the big person store. And man, it just, I'll never forget that day. I felt like I won that day, Yeah,
that's pretty special. Looking back on kind of your journey, is there anything you wish you had done differently?
Yeah. Honestly, I wish I would have started the carnivore thing a lot sooner, because I was losing weight on the bodybuilding diet, but it wasn't falling off as fast. So, and when you hop on the scale and you only see a pound difference, you're like, man, I've worked hard all week. Like, why is it only a pound? When I switched to carnivore, man, everything just started shredding so fast, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I would. Honestly, I felt more healthier when I switched to carnivore. When I started getting rid of the sugars, it's like, at first I was still eating the carbs, but I kind of carried the weight a little more in my stomach, right? A little more in my neck. And actually I'm a big guy. The carbs, that's where it absorbs me. When I started switching to carnivore, I just started leaning out. I felt better. I had more energy. A lot of people say you need carbs to have energy, but I don't think that's true. In my case, I didn't need the carbs. Man, I have so much energy right now, and I don't even eat any carbs.
Yeah. It's amazing how much breaking that addiction can really transform your life.
Absolutely.
Different mental state.
One thing is, man, I found that if I was having carbs, I was more open to wanting to reach for a candy bar, right? When I cut out all the carbs, I don't ever want to reach for anything like that. It's just, if that makes any sense, when I was having carbs, I felt like I still needed sugar. When I cut out the carbs, it's like I don't crave any of that. I could just walk past it, and that's okay.
Yeah. And talk a little bit, Hadi, about, these things like protein, Slingshot ice cream, some of the waffles and pancakes you make. I know some of it's for your daughter, but also I think it's really interesting. Mark Bell talks about this, having things to look forward to in your diet. Where do you stand on, including those things occasionally, keeping you on track, giving you something that you can create and enjoy and look forward to versus being, 100% strict, just meat and water?
Sure. So for me, I'm very strict on this diet. I rarely have anything like that. But, I do have kids, and if I am going to have anything, it's going to be, maybe once a month, maybe a couple times a month. But it's going to be like on a weekend day, to where I do make everything out of protein. So Mark Bell sells two great flavors. He has the chocolate flavor and he has the vanilla flavor of the Slingshot. Every time I tell somebody this recipe, they're like, man, it doesn't sound so good, but then it's delicious. So I pour some protein in the blender, right? And I put just a couple eggs in there, and I put a little cheese, just a little cheese. So it's basically like a chaffle almost. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yeah.
I blend it up and just put it in the waffle maker. And a lot of people think you're going to taste the cheese, but the flavor of the protein overpowers it, and it just tastes like a vanilla or chocolate waffle. Like my daughter eats them. If my daughter eats them and she doesn't know there's cheese in there, man, I'm winning already. She already just had the healthiest breakfast ever.
That's awesome. Getting your kids some protein in the morning,
Absolutely.
Keep them away from the sugar. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, Hadi, really appreciate you coming on. It's been awesome chatting with you, and appreciate you sharing your story. Where can folks follow you, learn more about what you're doing, and keep posted on your success?
They could follow me on Instagram. My handle is _carnivore_chef.
Great. I'll link to that at carnivorecast.com and in the show notes. And really appreciate your time today, Hadi.
Oh, thank you for having me on, brother. Thank you.
Of course.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Carnivore Cast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.